Martin, mine's for live. If I just tell you, everyone only heard us say that you're a Hall of Famer.
Okay,
that's only good things. Only good things for on this live
mic. You got to be pretty old to be a Hall of Famer, but that's okay.
Super informative show for you today. Going to be a lot of banter, a lot of back and forth, a lot of interesting insights.
We have a great guest, don't we? I forgot his name, but I know it's a good guest.
Straight guest, and Keith Smith of Yes Realty Partners is going to join us shortly on the show. So that a lot, and I know you want to talk. Xavier's going to talk a little bit about
just what's going on in the markets, just a little bit. Yeah,
sure.
It's just it's incredible. I mean, it's what keeps us young, right? I mean, the markets just keep moving.
Exactly.
One way or the other, they keep moving.
It's going to be a fun show that we have in store for you today. So go ahead to like and share, grab your café con leche, tell your friends to tune on in.
Cappuccino, a little cappuccino.
Your café cubano, your café latte.
Although if you're Cuban, you know what a cappuccino is, right? I mean, it's a dessert. That's even better. That's even better than a cappuccino.
It's even better. You'll go for that.
It's got all that rum and sugar. That really gets you going in the morning. It
means something very different in Cuba.
Exactly.
And where's mine?
Well, I didn't know you liked them. Where's mine?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Today y Mañana. I'm Alex. This is Xavier. We're really excited to have you joining us on a bright and sunny morning. Nice, beautiful
spring day, actually.
I know, it feels like that.
Feels that
spring
way.
Day. Unfortunately, it's going in the wrong direction. We know it's cold
exactly.
warmer from here. On this beautiful fall morning here in Charlottesville, Virginia, we're really excited to have you joining us this morning. We're glad to be here on the I Love Seville Network. We are, as always, we are presented by Emergent Financial Services. We are powered by Vitae Spirits, by Cristel Noel State Farm Agency, by GBS Financial Services, and by Seville Picnic. And we are always partnering with Forward Adelante, the premier Latino networking group here in Charlottesville, Virginia. Got some exciting sponsor news.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Do this weekend, things you can do in December. So there's going to be, Vitae Spirits has sent us that there's going to be a downtown Seville holiday open house from November 19th through the 21st. So basically this weekend, you can head downtown. There's going to be lots of great deals. Not just at Vitae Spirits, but along a lot of the shops
downtown,
on the downtown mall. And apparently there's also going to be a raffle for a $50 to $100 gift card. So you can check that out this weekend. And then December 4th from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. is the First Street Holiday Fair.
Okay.
So there was going to be a First Street Fair earlier this year. Weather made that not happen. But
they put it for December 4th.
They're going to put it on a holiday First Street Fair.
Oh, that's going to be exciting.
Vitae Spirits, Darling Boutique, I know they're all involved with setting up that fair along 5th Street. So you can check it out 10 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Just in time for Christmas.
Just in time for Christmas as the holiday seasons. You can bundle up, get your little hot cocoa, or if you need something a little warmer, you stop inside Vitae Spirits, grab a little something, and
do a little bit of both.
And then do a little bit of both and go from there. So that's a little bit of news that we have sponsor-wise for you. And of course, I know one of the things
we have a great guest today, don't we?
A great guest joining us shortly.
See, I just used an adjective, great.
Great.
Is that an adjective?
Yeah, great
Super,
in front of
great
guest is an
I'm
adjective.
good at this.
That is correct. Great in front of guest is an adjective. So our wonderful guest is going to be Keith Smith of Yes Team Realtors. That he's going to join us shortly. So and that's always a fun and entertaining and illuminating conversation. I always learn.
It'll be the first time he's on any kind of I Love Seville network, right? Isn't that right?
It's not as though you've seen him before, but this will be his first time on Today Mañana.
That's right. That makes it special.
We're going to change it up.
For Today Mañana.
Change it up a little bit.
You're saying I'm special, right?
Of course,
you exactly what we're saying.
Very much so.
And so I know you have a little bit also of things you wanted to talk about before we get to that. Just the markets, things that you're seeing. Because we always have our initial financial segment here on Today Mañana, just thinking about what we're seeing in the marketplace, how the different perspectives out there are. And I know you've been, I saw you busy at work on the Bloomberg terminal last couple of days doing a little research on this.
Yeah, it's amazing how I have like 20 screens on at the same time, and then I complain because the computer's too slow. And then you guys come in and say, well, you got 20 things going at the same time. It's like, yeah, but I got to keep an eye on these
running
things.
At the same time, it turns.
But anyway, And the reason I bring this up is because I'd like to know, I like people to understand some of the things that we look at and what we see, and to a certain respect, how difficult it is to forecast what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And so, just to give you an idea, so I think it was today, J.P. Morgan came out and indicated that they believed, or their feeling is, that the Fed's not going to raise rates next year until September of 2022. Now, Goldman Sachs, right, has said that the Fed's going to raise rates in July of 2022, and Morgan Stanley says they're not going to raise rates in 2022. So, all this is important because when you think about pricing securities, in other words, where are stocks going? How do you price bonds? How do you price options, right? It has to do with two major factors. One is, in the case of stocks in particular, where's inflation going, right? In other words, for the last decade, more or less, inflation's ranged between 2 and 3%. Very easy, not a big deal, low, easy to forecast. All of a sudden, we had this bump in inflation. We're at 6.2%. We're a little higher in some places. Everything is all over the place. The concept of transitory, I think, has fallen through the cracks.
That ship has sailed.
Exactly. That ship definitely has sailed. And say, well, it's not transitory anymore. And the only transitory part is now it's reaching out to other things, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the transit is that it's moving, right? It's moving in the wrong direction. Exactly. And it's just, again, it's interesting how everybody has a different perspective, right? If you look at all the major houses, and when I say major houses, meaning they all have economists, mm-hmm. top-notch economists, and they all have different views, right? And when it comes to inflation and when it comes to interest rates, we have seen in the past, I remember back in the 1970s, and I know I always go back then, but that's because that was a volatile time, there was a group of economists that saw, or at least indicated that interest rates were going to go up dramatically, and there were a whole bunch of economists that said, no, interest rates are going to stay where they are, right? So that group, the group that thought interest rates were going to go up, won out, right? I mean, they got it right. Well, that same group, once we hit the 1980s, they felt the same way. That their interest rates are going to stay high, they're going to go up higher, and the other group said, no, now interest rates are going to come down, and this is why. And of course, they won. The issue is that it doesn't matter who you are, how brilliant you are, how smart you are. Sometimes it's very difficult to forecast inflation and interest rates, right? Mm-hmm. So you look around and you have all these major houses. Some say, Goldman basically says inflation literally is going to come down next year. That basically we're going to see the economy begin to grow, but the supply chain begin to move in a better direction, and therefore that inflation will begin to decline and be a little smoother, right? Some of the houses say no, the inflation number is going to continue to be a challenge for at least another year and a half. Mm-hmm. So in other words, which one is right? Who's right? Should we be looking at it? Should we be thinking about that? And then the last piece that I just wanted to bring was there are literally 21 forecasters in Bloomberg that forecast what they think the stock market's going to do next year, right? So the range is for the S&P 500 to reach 3,000. So the S&P 500 right now is at, 4,600. So the range is to 3,800 to 4,800, right? That's the range of these 26 or 21 forecasters. That's a 26 differential between those two numbers. So some are going to be very right, some are going to be very wrong. And so what I tell people is that the issue is not where the market's going to be, but whether you are already involved in the market and whether your particular goals are set in such a way that you know what you want to achieve and what the time frame is. In other words, yes, if your time frame is 2 years, it's a challenging time. If you say, in 2 years, I need this money, it is a challenging time, and so you may want to say, how do I pull back a little bit? Because obviously the market's done very well, but how do I pull back? But if your time frame is, as you always say, retirement.
If you have a long-term time frame, right, the issue here, the number one question you need to be asking is my portfolio constructed appropriately? Not will my portfolio go up or down? Because the direction of the market, and I always think about it, in reality, as difficult as it is, we like to think of average, as being the number one thing you have to focus on. In other words, I want my portfolio to average X percent. Well, in any given year, you're never going to know what the market's going to do. You're not going to know the direction of the market, right? What you can know, which it's a less sexy number, let's be real, but it's much more important, which is standard deviation. And what that means is how much your portfolio moves.
That's a sexy number, but
yeah,
it's explaining it. That's not sexy.
How differently your portfolio moves from the average. And the important thing is that you're never going to know the direction of the market. But what you can know is the magnitude of how your portfolio reacts. In other words, do I have a risky portfolio that if the market goes up, I'm going to be up a lot, but if the market's down, I'm going to be down a lot? Or do I have a less risky portfolio where if the market's up, I might not be up as much as the market is, but if the market's down, I know I'm not going to be down as much. And that's what's within your ability to control by constructing your portfolio appropriately. The direction you can't control.
You can't control.
Make a portfolio that says, yeah, this portfolio is going to go up next year. Impossible to predict. Sometimes you're going to be right, sometimes you're going to be wrong. But you can make a portfolio saying, given X, my portfolio is less risky than X, my portfolio is more risky than this average that I'm looking at. And that's what you need to be thinking about long term, because you're going to have a risk level that's appropriate for you. And if you're really young, it's going to be a high risk level. If you're approaching retirement, it's going to be a much lower risk level. That's what's within your ability to control, not whether the market goes up or down or whether your portfolio goes up or down, because that one is it's beyond your capacity.
That's right.
To control.
Exactly, and that's again, and that's the key. And we always say there's lots of opportunities even in the market. I mean, if you really think inflation is going to continue to be high, you can invest in tips, you can invest in REITs. There are actually inflation hedge ETFs out there. So you got to take a look at them, see what that means, what's in there. So there are options.
You could make a move like that, and then inflation.
Of course,
goes the
I
other
was going to
direction,
say
and you
exactly.
Say, why am I in tips?
That's right. That's right. The issue is you want to create a diversified portfolio that maybe part of that portfolio includes some of these particular securities, because you say, boy, if it continues, I do want to participate in that sector. But again, it is a long-term play. It's really very similar to real estate, isn't that true? I mean, real estate is a long-term play. It's not something where you buy a house and you hope to flip it in 6 months. Is that correct? I mean, is that right?
I would
we
hope
ask
so.
that?
I mean, maybe we should ask someone.
I don't know. Do we have anybody here who knows about that?
Who might know the answer to that question?
As long as we stay away from adjectives, I'm good.
As long as we stay away from adjectives. So
this is the amazing.
This is the amazing. That was actually a good subtle segue right there.
Amazing.
So
That's an adjective, isn't it?
That is. So we're super excited to welcome the amazing and the wonderful Keith Smith to our show today. He's with Yes Team Realtors, along with Yona Smith, who we will have on. We'll have Yona and Keith one of these days, hopefully soon. But Keith, thanks for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me. This is always a ton of fun, and we love sitting behind these microphones and cameras and chatting. So I'm one part of Yes Realty Partners, actually, and my other Better 7/8 is actually out working today, so I can come and play and have fun with you guys on the show.
So we have a big thank you to Yona.
This wasn't supposed to be fun for Keith. I'm not understanding this. Really.
Well. We're going to have fun.
Okay.
So, we have our own little boutique brokerage with part of Keller Williams, and one of our other partners is Quentin Beckham, and we love him dearly. And Yona and I have this little boutique brokerage firm on the Keller Williams network, and Keller Williams Alliance network. So, real estate, I sit at that spot there a couple of times a week and talking real estate. So I'm here. Fire away. Ask questions.
Well, one question. I mean, I love the word yes. Right, and so I'd really like you to tell me how you came up with yes as the.
So you're going to think that's really deep, and that.
I know it was.
Yona Elizabeth Smith.
That's deep.
That's deep.
That
was it. It's.
But that's great, though. I mean, but I guess my point is, I remember that. So
yeah.
Did you like look at her name and say, "Wow, that the acronym
we
spells
did that.
yes"? Okay.
We did that. Yeah, we looked at that. It's kind of a can-do kind of thing. Just like you guys help Yona and I. We're clients of yours. How you help us. It's always a yes or can-do. It's like, okay, let's figure out what we can do to get you into a home, what's your circumstances, and it's a yes, can do attitude. So yes, we joke around, it's Yona Elizabeth Smith, but it is about who we are. Yes, not no. There's not a lot of no's in that.
That's the beauty, and that's what I meant when I see yes, it's a very positive, right? Very positive word, and that's the beauty of it. Yes, it can be done. We can do it.
We can do it.
We can help.
We can do it. You know, and if the yes is not today, right? The yes could be say, hey, get together with you all, or with a mortgage broker or some other folks, try to figure out how to get your financial house a little bit in order, so then you can turn around and be ready to buy when your credit score is a little bit better, or so forth and so on. Man, I took a bunch of notes as you were talking, and you know, we're always asked, Yona and I, what's the next roadblock, right? What's the next roadblock to the housing market? And the word I keep on coming up is inflation. I think we've all kind of figured out that, you know, insane, historical, low mortgage rates was never going to last forever, and we're starting to see that tick up a little bit. But I'm personally a little concerned about inflation, and that's, you know, we had this on our show when you had you guys on, and we were talking about it, and it was interesting. I spoke a couple of times last week at the Virginia Governor's Housing Conference, and this topic actually came up on that end of it, and I think, what would we call that word? Is it transitory?
Yeah,
Transitory.
Yeah. That's a great word.
It's a great word.
Let me write that down.
Transitory. Write that down. I'm trying to process what it means, but that's a whole different story. But yeah, who really cares? But I think what I'm really worried about is not necessarily the inflation. I'm going to focus a little bit on new construction, right? I think material costs are going to start stabilizing, to come down. It's the labor is the real inflationary, in my opinion, the real inflationary factor in this. And I don't know, you guys are geniuses on this end of this stuff. I don't know how we work through that. Does that make any sense?
In terms of, if there is a shortage of labor because of external factors, or industry specific, it could be people don't want to return to certain industries, that's not something that you can economically, like the economy itself, the market itself can fix if there's an external issue, and then it begins to seep into the prices, because the price of labor.
Well, I can tell you on the new construction side, right now we're per month anywhere between 300 to 400,000 workers, all levels, from non-skilled to skilled, short a month. So there's nationwide.
So that number's nationwide.
That is nationwide.
Okay.
There's 300. This is according to the National Home Builders Association. There are between 300 to 400,000 workers short on that. So I think you'll see the inflationary pressure from 2x4s and so forth and so on. I think you're going to start seeing that stabilize, maybe transitory kind of bore to the middle a little bit. But I just don't know how you fix that shortage quickly.
So Keith, actually the question though is, if the housing starts numbers that have come out recently have been more in line than they were at the beginning of the year. They were booming, right? Now they seem to be a little more in line. So really the question is, if you're short that kind of labor, then the expectation will be that some houses will not be able to be built, right?
Exactly.
In other words, if you can't build the houses because you can't find the labor, right? What does that do? Does that make those houses, the new homes, more expensive, or will that also stabilize, right? Because the issue is, you need the housing because there's demand, and if the product is there, in other words, if the equipment and everything and
sticks and bricks,
the sticks and bricks that you need to build a home, if they're there, but you don't have the labor, right?
Put them up.
It doesn't change the price of the sticks and bricks, right?
No, I don't think it would impact that too much. It may have something to do with it because you need labor to produce the sticks and bricks to get delivered to the job site, right? And for them to go vertical. I think this is just my opinion for what it's worth. I think you're going to start seeing the larger builders slow down their sales intently, right? Because they don't want to overcommit, right, and underperform, right, on that end of it. So which will then cause prices to go up.
That's what I was going to say. So in essence, so you in reality, no matter what we're starting to get to is, to a certain respect, no matter how you get to it, prices are going to go up, because if they're holding back building houses, but the demand is still there, then those houses are going to go up in price. If the workforce,
It's also going to go up on the retail side.
right,
Is going to, not, I use the word retail, but the, regular existing homes
absolutely,
for sale.
absolutely. On the other side is if in order to attract that 300 to 400,000 workers, right, you have to increase the labor, right? In other words, you say, I'm going to pay you more, the wages, et cetera. Well, that's going to increase the prices of homes anyway, right? Because all of a sudden, I got to pay these guys more in order to create these new homes, and therefore that's going to go up. So no matter how you look at it right now, the forecast for the housing industry seems to be upward pressure on price.
Absolutely. I'm actually attending a seminar that Dr. Lisa Sturvin, who's the Virginia Realtors chief economist, at 3 o'clock today. I'm actually part of a panel over there on that, talking about the crystal balling what 2022 is going to look like from a housing perspective, and where prices are going to go, and where interest rates are going to impact it from her perspective on that end of it. But at the end of the day, you guys are economic geniuses, right? Supply and demand kind of is a simple
It's a basic concept.
Yeah.
It's a basic concept, right? And we need to increase the supply. And that's why new construction is so important, because as you increase your new construction component, it actually increases your existing homes into the buy and the sell portion, the portion of it. But I have a question, if you don't mind, right?
No, you can't.
Right. Where do you?
We haven't even asked the questions.
Yeah. I'm going to take them.
Go for it.
Where do you think mortgage rates are going to go next year?
This is supposed to be about Yes Realty, not about mortgage rates, interest rates, inflation.
But this is.
I mean,
this is what we
you
do.
So without any doubt, there's two pressures on mortgage rates, right? One is that the Federal Reserve is now buying less mortgages in the open market. Last month they bought $5 billion less. This month, meaning in December coming, they'll be buying $5 billion less. That puts pressure in the market, meaning that there's one less buyer, right? So one less buyer, if the demand for mortgage securities isn't there, those prices have to basically come down, interest rates go up. So that's one pressure point. I don't think it's going to be enormous, but nevertheless a pressure point. The second really is, where interest rates are going. With all this that's been going on, with the expectation that the Fed's going to raise rates, with inflation where it is, the 10-year has really actually dropped from 1.7 to 1.4. So it's gone in the opposite direction that everybody expected.
Sure. Why is that, you think?
That's a whole different story.
Got it. I'll shut up.
Yeah. Let me finish my thought, and then we can go into that. But the issue being that sometimes the markets don't react the way they should, right?
Yeah,
and two, I think markets try to forecast what's really going to happen. And I don't think there's anybody out there that truly believes that the Federal Reserve is going to raise rates that quickly, that soon, that it's going to impact interest rates across the board, right? And so, and two, the reason the 10 years out, the amount of money out there that is either in cash or ready to be invested in bonds is still enormous. So anytime there's an opportunity, that 1.7 looked like very attractive to a lot of people, and they just went out there and bought it, right? So my feeling is that mortgage rates are going to rise a little bit, and we've seen them rise, right? I mean, they probably were about 2 3/4. Now they're probably about 3% for a 30-year mortgage.
A little higher than that.
Okay, so maybe 3 1/4.
Yeah, somewhere.
All right. So my suspicion is they'll continue to go a little higher, but I really don't think next year they break even 4%. So historically, even a 4% mortgage, man, that's wonderful. I mean, you and I live from. My parent used to have a 6% when I went to get a 15 3/4% interest rate, and I was saying he's so lucky. Now 6% looks like, holy cow, you got 6%. You got to be crazy. So everything is relative, right? So 4 is still low enough, not crazy low, like 2 3/4. But I'm not 100% sure that low mortgage rates will slow down the housing market too much at this point.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that, and I think you're right. I think I think we'll end up hitting 4% by the end of 2022. Excuse me. We'll find out what the good doctor has to say today. On that end of it. But we kind of talk about this all the time. I mean, the buyer pool is so deep, right? And the inventory is so low that it's just, I love sitting and listening to you guys, and I love talking to you guys because you guys really tie together this whole economic thing that is like way above my pay grade on that end stuff and kind of come into it. But yeah, I agree 100%. It's and thank you for making this about Realty Partners and all this stuff, and I appreciate that. I just love having a conversation with you guys about this stuff, right? And I'm just geeking out a little bit on it, so I apologize.
No, you don't apologize.
I'm going down a route.
My way of trying to detail out this is I'm always curious, because we see the economic end of it. And I'm always curious, so when someone walks in the door in an environment like this, because most of the time I'm thinking, like when people go to buy a house, I'm pretty sure the economics is not their first thought side, with the exception of the people that want to flip houses and stuff. Like you're ready to buy a house and you looked at this and you're like, oh my goodness, is this like the worst time ever for me to try to buy a new home? So how do you, like, if someone walks in the door, how do you sort of translate for them what you see happening in the real estate market and walk them through the process of buying a home? I mean, if someone walks in now and says, I'm ready to buy my first house, I'm really excited, Keith, can you help me do this? Do you have to sort of talk to them about what's going on in the market? Or I'm curious how that process works.
So our business,
never having done it.
Our businesses are almost identically the same. We do literally the first thing you guys are going to do. And what is that? The first thing you're going to do is sit down and have a conversation and understand what the needs, the wants of the buyer is, or of your client is, if it's a sell or if it's a buy. So what are your goals? What are your objectives? What are you trying to achieve, right? And with 30 years of doing this stuff, you start kind of formulating an understanding of that, but you first need to understand what are your goals and your objectives. If it's a flipper, then it's a different conversation, right? So we'll kind of put that aside, right? We're talking about the average first-time home buyer. They're going to come in and sit down and say, hey, Keith, what's my first step? And that's the question.
Exactly.
Right. So the first question is to have a conversation, and what you're trying to do. The second step is to actually, frankly, bring in a loan officer pretty quickly and figure out what they can afford to buy, right? So from our perspective, you really want to want to have that conversation pretty quickly. It's great to have a conversation. I need a 3-bedroom, 1,000 square feet, 2,000, 3, what all that stuff is all great conversations to have because you're understanding the needs, but we need to understand what I can afford, because I can tell you 8 out of 10, most people buy a home based on their monthly payment, right? So this is why this 4% is so important, or this 2.5%, and all this stuff is so important. I'm an affordable housing advocate, but what we're talking about is affordability, housing affordability, right? So as that interest rates goes up, this $1,500 a month, which is my maximum amount that I feel I can spend, as that interest rate goes up, my house price starts dropping down. So figure out, what's their needs, get them to know them. This is a relationship business, just like you guys on that end of it. Get them in front of a trusted advisor to figure out what their financial situation is, what we can do to help them or not help them, and how much house can they afford based on the monthly payment they're comfortable with. And that's really the first conversation. And they're going to want to go out and look at houses, and that's great, and that's relationship building. But at the end of the day, what we don't want to do is, if there is their monthly amount and where they're at equals $200,000, and we're looking at a $400,000 home and they fall in love with it, that's not a good thing.
Right, exactly.
So we want to set expectations starting point.
Where it's reasonable.
Do you find, though, that, just kind of historically from just my experience, do you find, though, that even though you go through all the homework and you say, here's the range of what you can afford, they still kind of push constantly, this house, it's too small, I don't like it. And then you show them a little better, this one's, and so you end up going up in price? or is it the other way around?
It depends on the who, right? Right. If we're dealing with first-time home buyers at this current market, we don't see a lot of that.
Okay.
Right. Empty nesters. Right, we say, well, I really only want to spend this much, I want to spend that much, and then they look at a house that's a little bit more because they have the fiscal ability to pay for it, then we kind of go there.
Okay.
That conversation is more on the seller side. Right, that conversation is more on the seller side, where I'm sure there's a question in here about that somewhere on that end of it, but that's more.
No, I'd
happens
be
on the
interested to
seller.
know about the seller side. How does
Well, that'd be interesting because the
seller.
seller. I mean, I suspect that all sellers are trying to figure out, what their
The
house
most
is
they can
worth, but
possibly
they always assume that there's kind of gold in their
Sure,
house.
sure.
And
Right.
my neighbor sold it for $1 million, so mine's got to be worth 1.2.
Well, with the exception of me, we all kind of think we're smarter than when we actually are. So, but yeah, so that's a whole different type of a conversation. The front end of it is not really any different, right? The front end of it is establish the relationship, establish the expectations, find out what exactly that particular property owner is trying to achieve, which is really no different than what you guys do, right? Right? We sat down
it's
and
the goals,
you
the
said, what's our
objectives."
goals? What's our objectives? And believe it or not, I sat back and shut up. Nah. Nah. But the reality of it is that then you said this is really the right path, and then you are our trusted advisors, and we believed you, and we this is what we're doing. That process is really no different on that end of it. One of the Jerry Miller and I talk about this on Real Talk all the time, and one of the things I love about doing that show for 3 times a week, it actually makes me better at what I do, because it forces me to dig into this data and into this information that we're talking about. So when we have a conversation with the client, I can support it with facts, right? But generally, yes, everybody thinks our home is worth and what the market actually can absorb. When we sit down with the client, we go through we call it a CMA. We actually do an analysis, which is the same as an appraisal. It's just not an appraisal, right? And then we lay out the market, and then it's your decision to make on if our range is X to Y, this is where we feel it'll move, and this is where we feel it'll move in a certain amount of time. On that end of it, then the decision is yours, of course. If you want to go much higher than that, we'll probably counsel you that that's probably not in your best interest.
Do you ever find people that's like, well, you obviously don't know what you're talking about, so I'm going to go to somebody that agrees with my price?
It happens all the time.
Okay, and then they come back and say, gee, maybe he was right.
And that happens all the time.
All the time.
And you get a phone call back and say that. And here's the problem with that. And I'm going to give a shout out to a gentleman by the name of Michael Guthrie. Michael taught me these words 12, somewhat, whatever many years ago, and I use it all the time. We walk in and say, do I have permission to be honest with you? It's a kind of an obvious question, right? But when the client says yes, then we are very honest with them. And then if they don't agree with us, that this is your decision.
Right.
We could be wrong, right? It's happened once or twice. Just only
in the
once.
last 20 years, only
30.
30 years.
30.
Okay.
But yeah, so was that helpful?
No, it is.
Yeah.
It is managing. I like that question about, can I be honest with you? Because sometimes I think people assume that's what they want, but deep down, you kind of just want someone to say, yes, you think your home is worth $1.5 million. Guess what? It is.
Yeah.
And it just.
And we're the people to sell it
and
for.
we're the people to sell it for. Life doesn't really work that way.
Exactly.
Well,
So
it's not only that. Look, real estate from a sales side of it and from a buy side of it, unless it's cash, requires three entities to make a deal happen. What are those 3 entities? Buyer, seller, and the bank.
The bank, yeah.
Which the bank is the appraiser, right? So you could say your house is worth $40 million, right? Whatever the number is.
It was a little high, but that's okay.
Yeah. 400,000, whatever the number is, right? It doesn't matter, right? And we say, yeah, we're going to go do it, and we get a contract in for $410,000, right? And Alex is the banker, and Alex sends out the appraiser, and then all of a sudden the appraiser says, no, it's only worth 380, which was the number that I gave you to start with. So what are we going to do now, Coach? Right? We've got an appraisal at 380. We got a contract at 410. Right? We've got a delta of, who's smart? What's the
30.
delta? 30,000. Thank you. $30,000 on that. How we're going to make that shortfall? And if we can't figure that out, that house goes back on the market. And what happens then?
Price drops.
No.
Price goes up.
No.
All right,
Now it has a little bit of a scarlet letter on it.
Oh.
Because we professionals are tracking this. The general public is tracking this. Zillow is tracking this. People can look at it. Well, hold it. The house was on the market. We had the contract for 410. It fell apart on that. It's back on the market. What the hell went wrong?
So now you're making the assumption here that the person that was buying was going to put a certain percent down, but not enough, right? Where the bank says, I'm not lending you that balance.
Yeah.
But so let's say the person put down 30,000. Would the bank give him 380?
So great question, and the short answer is yes. So how you get around that is the buyer has to bring more cash to the table, right? So the and it depends on the loan product too, right? Because if it's like a VA or something like that, you can't do that, right?
Yeah.
But let's say it's a regular conforming 30-year mortgage, yeah, you just would have to bring the cash to the table.
Okay.
But then you need to make that decision. As the buyer, am I comfortable overpaying for a home at this particular point?
Yeah. So another question I have. So when you look at homes, right? So in other words, I come in and say, I like to sell my house, right? Do you just look at...
Yona, she's better at this than me.
Okay, so let's...
We tried.
She's busy. She's working. You're here. So when you look at
that was good, Alex.
I don't always pull those off.
Nice job, Alex.
Where's that clap thing? You put that clap thing.
Very good. Wow, Alex. Oh, look at this. I gotta go. I got a meeting.
There we go.
Well done, Alex. Bravo.
Thank you.
Bravo.
That was great. So when you look at somebody's home, right, do you just look at what's sold around, or do you take a look at his home and do you go inside and say, wow, I mean, this house has, these kind of windows, it has great floors, it's supposed to carpets and things. Does that add to the value of the house?
Great question. So it's yes and yes. So it's absolutely right. It's both. You look at both. So when we do, comprehensive plan, or we take a look at the market, we're going to take look at the market holistically. In a subdivision or a homeowners association or in the city of Charlottesville, it's a little easier because you're more dense, right? It gets a little bit harder when you're out in the rural areas and all this stuff. But you're 100% right. So the first pass is really pure numbers, right? It's pure what's on the market, what's pending, what's sold, what's similar to this. It's a real simple mathematical equation on that end of it. Then you go into the home and you say, okay, Xavier, I just put, Keith and Yona, I just put a brand new roof on my house. I think it was $15,000 or whatever it was on that end of it. How much of that can I get back? Well, probably 60% or 50% of it. So then you can bump the price up a little bit. Hey, I just put a brand new HVAC system in it that was 20 years old, and so you can start adjusting that number accordingly. So that's, and I speak to this all the time. This iPhone is never going to really come up with an automated value of your home. It can come with the first half of it, which is pure numbers, but then I need to get into your home, and we need to look at it, and we can say, we give a list, what improvements have you done in the home, right? And then we start adjusting that back and forth, because when we go to sell your home or market your home, even if it's higher than what the market is going to absorb, we're going to say, well, hold the time out. You've got a brand new roof, which you don't have to do for 30 years. You've got a brand new HVAC system, which you don't have to do for 10 more years. So there's a value there that is packed into that home.
So it's part of you, I guess, also helping people figure out what the value is in their home beyond that first initial pass of numbers.
Yeah, so it's two parts, and it's a yes and a yes, right? You can't do one without the other, right? End of it. I think, maybe from a flipper's perspective, actually they look at both ends, right? They say, if I'm going to pay X dollars for it, but I have to put Y dollars into it to bring it up to market, will Z work, right?
Right,
Will it equal Z?
Wow, there's so much that goes.
Do you see a lot of that going on today, flippers, or is it just the market too expensive?
That's a great question.
Man, I'm full of great questions today.
Yeah. I think it's still in the market. I think and the gentleman that's sitting in the far right corner of here is probably going to agree with me on this. I think, and this is a question I have for you guys, I think you're going to start seeing the street in the market, housing market, way more than what it is in Wall Street. You're starting to see larger companies come in and buy SFD, single-family detached homes, and flip. I don't see them in our marketplace at the moment, but you'll see them in larger marketplaces like
Blackrock.
Well, I mean,
notoriously
they've already been in there, right? So,
well, just recently, Zillow's dropping its iBuyer market because it's not making any money. Go
exactly.
figure.
Yeah, that stock's down like 40%.
Yeah, we called out a few years ago.
Yeah.
On that end of it, but what's happening is BlackRock, all these other are buying up their stock. And
Well, because they have in some ways a competitive advantage over the normal home buyer, because BlackRock comes in and says, hey, skip the bank.
That's
I'm going
right.
to pay you entirely in cash because for me this is an investment and I have millions bankroll in me and you cannot pay 100% in cash, and then I go and rent the single family.
But let's be honest though. I mean, the BlackRocks of the world, right, look for opportunities, and they go into a market and say, boy, this market's up like 30-40%.
Yeah,
I'm
they're
not sure.
to this
I'm not
market.
sure. Yeah.
No. So if you track them, they're in Arizona,
Right.
Phoenix. They're in bigger, larger markets that have that. I don't see that impacting us. So this whole conversation we're having is just a kind of a theoretical conversation.
Always, yeah.
But out in the general marketplace around the country, I think it's going to have an impact. I really do.
Well, and it's making changes, and people are seeing it. So, do you think Charlottesville, is there something about our market that you think it's less likely? Is it because of where our market is going? From a financial perspective, it doesn't make sense for them to invest here, given that it's already so high? Or are there other factors you think will limit the possibility of that here?
So obviously, we're not part of their business plan and how they structured
Of course,
their ROI.
we're sort of just spitballing thinking about the market.
But I know enough about this business to make this statement. Volume matters in their business plan, right? So if it's 1 or 2 or 3, right, it's not going to work for somebody like a large entity to set up shop here, because you're going to have local people, right? Purchase, manage, whatever it's going to do. So it needs to be built around areas where they can buy a large portfolio. It's very similar to what happened in the time of great unpleasantness, and when the foreclosures were at this volume that this huge number, and there was help me out, gentlemen. They were what is the banks? Asset management firms, right? So asset management firms came in and acquired all these foreclosures, and it didn't work well unless it was a large number of them.
Of course,
Stuff.
yeah.
It needs to be
No, that's exactly. I mean, that's how they operate. It's the same thing when all this quote unquote, when people couldn't pay their credit cards last year, they didn't go buy just one little piece, right? They bought the whole bank's portfolio.
the whole
right?
portfolio,
Exactly. And no, I agree that's how it works. I mean, BlackRock's going to come here and say, I'm going to buy 3 homes. No, it doesn't.
No.
Yeah. So I just don't want the folks who are watching to start thinking that this is going to be a huge impact for our.
That's what I was thinking.
Our region. I think we're just wonking out a little bit on how that works. Yona and I love this term. Real estate, on my end of it, is a contact sport.
It is.
You have to make contact with real people and have real conversations and get into that kitchen table and understand what Xavier and Alex are trying to achieve in their lives. That's it. That's the simple breakdown of it. And then you bring in your 30 years of experience, 20 years of experience into that, and trying to help move that contact sport, move that family or that person into where they're trying to go.
Where they go. Because it's a real asset. It's not a financialized construct. In other words, like you can buy a stock without visiting the headquarters of the company. You may never need to go into the store of the company. You may never need to see the headquarters. You just say, I just want to see the numbers, because the only thing that matters for me is the cash flow of this stock consolidated into one price today.
What's the product? Who's buying it?
What's the product? Who's buying? Right?
Yeah.
With the real estate, I mean, at some point you have to go into the house. You can't just sit there and say, yeah, I intend to move into this home, but I really have no interest in seeing it or feeling it out, this actual asset, before I go there.
So again, another term our mutual friend Mr. Miller has coined is digital curbside. Curb appeal. Thank you. Our he's on the show. He's just over there. So, we have actually, Yona and I have actually done quite a few actually, selling homes without having people in it via FaceTime.
Wow.
Right? Sight unseen. That's the term I was looking. Sight unseen.
That's pretty amazing.
But we went through that, but that was typically sophisticated buyers, right? Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay.
Second, third home, not necessarily a first-time home buyer, right? On that end of it. So the who you're working with on the buyer and how you help them is very specific on where they are and doing that end of it. But I recently sold one from believe it or not, a woman from Malaysia.
Wow.
But that's got to be a small percent, right?
On one hand.
Yeah, yeah.
Two hands, maybe.
So this brings me to another very important question, I think, for you, Keith. When I look at the real estate market,
we'll come and list your house tomorrow. Is that what it was?
when it comes, not until they leave. When it comes to the real estate market, right? One of the things that I see a lot is there's real estate people, and it's unbelievable that when you go to parties or events, there seems to be, like 50% of them are even giving you insurance. They work for insurance of real estate, right? But what I do realize is that in order to be a good real estate agent, right, you have to be in the business for a long period of time, right? Because the people that are only there for short periods or work part-time, my feeling is, and again, I might be speaking off terms here, but I don't get the feeling that they understand the markets and the markets meaning where they live, as well as people have been there day in, day out. They know everything about it. In other words, when somebody approaches your home and say you want to sell it, somebody approaches your home, I want the person that has been around for a very long period of time, and they come and say, by the way, you see that tree over there? That's an eyesore, so we need to get rid of that tree. That's a minimal thing, but things of that sort, right? And so how do you see that from your perspective? And I know that you're trying very hard to expand, the people that work with you. How do you see this working out, and how important is somebody that comes in and says, I want to make this my lifetime goal to sell real estate, as opposed to, I want to do this for a couple of years?
Yeah, so I'll go back to this contact sport end of it, right? And how do you become an expert at anything, right? There's a whole 10,000 hours rule, right? You do something for 10,000 hours, you become an expert in it, or perceived expert, excuse me, in it. So we at YRP are trying to engage young, dynamic folks. We had this conversation on Real Talk about last week on that end of it. So we're trying to do that. The way to do that is you bring in, a young, dynamic person, and you help apprentice them. It's no different if I wanted to join your firm, right? And I have my license. We're going to go to the closer, and the closer is going to help me learn the business. So normally, what would happen in that, if we're on our firm, that if we just hired on a young, dynamic, young African-American agent, male, I think he's 20-something. We're just super excited about it.
Nice.
But what will happen is when he goes to your house, either Yona and I are going to be with him.
Gotcha.
Right, and we're going to help coach him, help mentor him into this process, so he can get to that point where he's comfortable on his own. So that's how that typically works on that end of it. But yeah, it's again, it's a contact sport. You've got to sit down at people's kitchen table, and it's very it's very honest and open conversations you have to have.
So basically what you're saying is when you look for a real estate company, you want to make sure that the people there have been in the business for a good period of time.
Or have
that
a
are
support
knowledgeable
network.
about it. Have a support network, sure.
To go to bring
Well, that's what I meant. I mean, there's somebody there that you can say, yes, I
Sure.
mean, he's been here a long time and he knows this market very well and the real estate market and everything that needs to happen before I either sell my house or buy my house.
We as an industry need to get more diverse, young, and dynamic.
Yeah.
Our average age in this area is like 57 or something like that.
But it takes that long to, at
Yeah.
the same time, it takes that, in other words, you get somebody young today and you have to train him or her, right? And that person, it's going to take them a good 10 years, right, before they become as good as you. They may be dynamic and they may bring a different.
But it's also Xavier, it's two-way, right? We're about the same age, right? So if you bring in somebody that's younger that can use this a lot better than you and I can, and this is where the industry is going, right? At least at your first step. On that end of it, it's two-way. You help me, I help you.
True,
So,
yeah.
So it could be two ways. And
Have you seen the average age? Has the average age been increasing, or has it been pretty steady for a while?
Yeah, it's. I think it's increasing, but so incrementally.
Okay.
It's a huge divergence between the age groups, and I can tell you in our area, we talked about this the other day. We're not diverse by any stretch of the imagination, both on age and race.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was just trying to think ahead to where, like, in other words, is it a lack of new people coming in, or is it just that this industry has, for a very long time, been heavily weighted towards people who have been doing it for a long time?
Yeah, I think like anything, it's a lack of education on our part, on my industry's part, right? I think it's a lack of education of getting out there and energizing Nick or energizing some young person.
Are you trying to recruit here? Because
I'm totally trying to.
I mean, this is not working out. I think we're done with this.
Call me. Honestly, energizing. So this could be a career. So you can hit this whatever sales goal or whatever income volume you want to reach. It's going to take a time. 10 years is a little strong. I think 3 to 5 years. If you really do this 110%, you can do well in this industry. But you've got to put that time in.
It's part of having also the right mentality of the people that are already in it, because there's a tendency, I think, if you had current realtors whose only interest was, well, I don't want more competition, right? That's a very different mentality from yours. One of the things we've admired about you and Yona is that you kind of have that mentality of, no, I want to encourage younger, diverse people to enter into this business. You don't see them really as, oh goodness, I'm going to make more realtors, which is just more competition for me. You tend to take the opposite perspective, that this is better for you.
Oh, without a doubt, 110% is better for the industry. It's better for everything. Look, if it's like your industry, right? Every industry kind of has people that maybe are not at 110%, right? Right. The people that are a little bit lower than that are kind of hurting the people that are 110%, right?
Exactly.
So if you can help the people that are lower get up to 100%, it benefits everybody.
That's right.
A rising tide lifts all boats.
I heard that before. That's good.
That was pretty deep.
Yeah, that was deep.
That was nice.
Yeah.
That was a great touch.
No
a
clapping.
metaphor there.
That was the clap
clapping.
here. Was the
No
clap.
Oh, the clap, a little metaphor there. We went even beyond adjectives. We're at metaphors now.
That's right. Whatever that is.
I was going to ask Google what a metaphor is, but I won't do that.
Later. The only challenge that I see for you guys, though, and that's also something we talked about, is that when somebody young comes into this business, they say, okay, how much am I going to make, right?
Yeah.
And the problem is that there's no fixed salary. I mean, this is pretty much a you eat what you kill, right? As a Marine always used to tell me, you eat what you kill. And so that I would say that's an enormous challenge, because if you're young, energetic, and want to be in the business, but you don't have any savings, you come into this business, you say, so wait a minute, so the first year or maybe year and a half, I don't make any money. That's tough. That's very difficult. That means, yeah. So is there another way for this business to pay? For example, even in our business, not necessarily our business, but in the brokerage business, right? You come into a brokerage firm, everything in a lot of brokerage firms is commission. But they don't sit there and say, okay, everything's commission. So they do have, it's like, okay, the first year we're going to pay you X, right? And then after that, you got to build your book and you're on commission. And the second year, we're not going to give you full commission because you got to pay us back for what we paid you, right? So, there's a give and take there, but at least it's like, okay, I make something and I can see if I can make this work. Is there any way that can work in this business?
I'm sure there are models out there that works, but my counter argument to that is one of the beautiful things about our business, the way it's structured, all our agents that are under the YRP umbrella, they own their own independent businesses. They are independent businesses, right? They just, under the brokerage model, they work under the brokerage. Actually, yesterday, Yona and I did our business planning class with our agents so that they would help them establish their business plans for 2022 through. We spent the whole day doing that. We ended up with a couple margaritas at the end of the day, but we spent the whole day building the business plan. So the key here, the way the business at the moment is structured, these are independent businesses. You need to find somebody who has this entrepreneurial spirit, who sees that if I put in this 110% today, X number of months or years down the road, it does that. So our goal as brokerage or broker owners of a brokerage is to help guide that agent to what their goals were. Because we literally did this yesterday. We did this with all our agents. What is your goal? What is your objectives? Very similar to the conversation. By the way, thank you for bringing that up. We talk a lot on these microphones, and we never really talk about how the process is of sitting down and helping a buyer and seller. So thank you for doing that. So the reality of it is, it's the same conversation, right? It's the same conversation. What is your goals, Alex? What is your objectives? What do you have? What can we do to help you get there? It's really no different.
In some ways, it's almost like an entrepreneurship class in and of itself, because you're going to have your own business.
It is your own. It is your own.
And you're helping walk them through. All right, here's what goes into running this business. Not just the part where you go out and meet with potential buyers and sellers, but also the part that happens behind the scenes, the things that you need to be thinking about as this business that you are running.
So as the licensing system works here, is I personally have a license with the DPOR, right? The Department of Occupational Professionalism. I can't remember what it stands for. But I can take that license and I can go to any other brokerage. I could just say, bye-bye, I see you later. I'm going over to here, right? So that's the struggle from the business end of it, right? So we have these number of agents under our umbrella, but they're all independent licensed agents, independent companies, and our goal is to help them grow. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. No.
So that's the struggle. How do you do that? How do I keep you as an independent business? Because at the end of the year, you get a 1099, right? Right. How do I keep you as an independent business? Coach and mentor you and say, okay, well, I'm going to enter into a contract with you, because that's the way it's going to have to be, that I will pay $50,000 as you outline, and then what happens 6 months from now? I say, no, I'm moving my license somewhere else. So how does that work?
Well, obviously you got to lock them in.
But I don't know if I can legally. Okay. So that's what I don't have the answer to. I don't know if I can do that.
A contract's a contract. I'm not a lawyer, but a contract is a contract.
But the licensing supersedes all this stuff. That's what I don't know enough about. I'm just a real estate agent. My wife's the broker, so if she was here, she's the one that would answer that.
I'm just a finance guy. Just lock them in.
That's right.
I'm curious, so Because I think in part of this, right, granted the money is a part of it, how much you can make, the income you can do, the commission, we talked a lot about this, but at the end of the day, they have to also like what they do. Like that's
exactly
a key part
right.
of it. So I'm curious, because I don't think that we've ever asked you this, either when we've been on your show either, is that what do you love about doing this, about being a realtor?
So
Curious.
I got out of the Marine Corps in 1986. I've been doing this since 1987. I've never worked a day in my life. I've never actually worked a day in my life.
I think that's what Jonas said to the other day.
Yeah,
when I was talking.
I love it. I love to sit down and help Alex achieve your goals and dreams. I don't care if it's 100,000 or X, whatever it is. We love helping people. And that's what it is. We're in the people business. We're not in the house business. We're in the people business.
Exactly. That's perfectly said. I mean, and it's funny. Before when he asked, I said it's people, and you can tell. I mean, in this business, in your business, you have to be a people person. If you don't enjoy talking to people, you're in the wrong business, because that's what it's all about.
But you brought up an interesting point, right? So just to talk about this whole contractual thing, let's take what because I honestly
Don't get me in trouble here.
I'm going to totally get you in trouble. I honestly, Yona and I and Quentin Beckham and YRP, we honestly are trying to figure out a way to grow the racial complex, the number of
Racial diversity.
Thank you very much. Racial diversity, right? He's still helping me. He's not even sitting here. The racial.
No wonder
He's here.
No wonder he showed
You just
up
can't
this
see him,
morning.
but he's here in the seat.
Oh, he showed up. Oh,
No wonder he showed up
He
this
doesn't
morning.
normally show up.
Of course not.
Oh no. Jonas sent him a text, but you better go there.
You know, the funny thing, folks, is it's very true, probably. Please take care of him. Don't get him. Correct him when he overspeaks. I get it. Got it. Yeah. All
Don't
right.
send him in the pit with those Cubans when they're not.
No. That had nothing to do with it. That has everything to do with me getting myself into trouble. So look, now I got to get my train of thought back. Let's take what you were saying and just for the sake of what we're doing here and grow it a little bit, right? And tie in what you just said. So Xavier comes in, yada yada yada. Okay, we'll cover year number one. Here's a $50,000. We'll help you do this. We'll help you do that. And we're in year two, and all of a sudden, I don't like this anymore. I want out. How are you going to pay me my $50,000 back?
No, well,
Yeah.
Right?
They're always.
How does that work?
There's a business
That's the
risk.
struggle.
Every single business has that, right? So I hire somebody for $25,000, $50,000, $70,000. They come in the first year, they do nothing for me, and they walk away.
So you're
I
assuming brokerages make a lot of money.
No, I'm not assuming anything, but I mean, I've seen guys driving BMWs and Lexuses, so they got to be making some money.
No, that's old debt, brother.
No, but my point is, you
cool.
wonder if
It's all
there's a
bad.
way. My point was, what
Can you believe
is
that?
there?
You stuck me next to him. I could have sat next to you.
We should have put you in the.
This is our show. I'm talking here.
Oh, got it. Sorry. All right. Lost control there for a minute. Yeah, you know.
No,
you-
my assumption is that I'm just wondering if there's a way to begin to attract the young. You want to attract young, especially we talked about Latinos, young Latinos, right? Latinos, meaning I know you have trouble with that.
But let's talk about numbers, right? You know, so a split, right? So you know how our business works, right?
Yes.
Right. So if I'm bringing you in and you want 85-15, and I only got 15% left of the 2% of the sale price, right? My pool is pretty small. I got to pay for an office. We got to market. We got to do all this kind of great stuff. You really don't have that much discretionary dollars to say, okay, it's not that we're not willing to take that risk, but then, okay, we're going to do the 50,000 for you. If we're going to do a contract, there's going to be a little back and forth here, right? Right? We'll perform if you perform, but my fear is all of a sudden, hey, I don't want to do this any longer. So I don't want to.
But that's any business.
That is
Yeah,
any business.
that was my
Hey, this
point.
is our show. But I don't. But our business is relationships. Now all of a sudden we just got a problem with our relationship. We didn't set the expectation up right. We didn't go ahead and go through all this stuff. So I'm not smart enough to figure this out.
Yeah.
There should be a path out there somewhere.
I mean, listen, I don't work in your business.
Most people
but
think I
in
know,
my
by the way.
in our business, we have the same concept. Sometimes we're marketing people, they're third-party marketers, right? You hire them and
Sure.
you pay them X amount of money, and then you just hope they bring in business. If the first 2 or 3 years they don't bring in business, you've lost, right?
Sure.
So it's a risk. Now, my point is there a way to say, okay, there's a small salary and there's a small percentage? In other words, yes, you're coming with me and or Yona or both of us, and we're helping you. So a small percentage of that, if will come to you also. So in other words, there's now an incentive. I have a little bit of money that I can live on, right? And I also have the incentive that if I do well, if I'm learning, I'm getting a piece, right? And then, of course, later on, the following
short
year.
answer to that is
okay.
yes.
Okay.
But it has to be the right person.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
Yeah, but who's the right person, right? How do you
Well,
know
the right
that?
person is we've been doing this for 30 years. I know what it takes to do the job. We read people for a living. This is what we do,
Yeah.
right? And there has to be faith, right?
Of course.
And we'll do this if you do that.
Yeah.
And we could move the ball forward.
And so what is you have to take the leap of faith.
Yeah.
To say,
I'm just saying that.
It's two-sided, by the
Yeah,
way.
of
It
course,
is on both
two-sided.
of
sides.
course.
Two-sided.
Yeah. I'm just saying you may have to take that leap of faith to attract that young, energetic person that instead of going somewhere else to do something because he's getting paid, 50 grand, 60 grand, 70 grand, to say, yeah, this, long term, this is what I really want to do, but, there's got to be something there.
Well, it's you have to find somebody who has 110% in this entrepreneurial spirit that can see this is where I can be. But we talked about this before. Do you know what's the average, what we call GCI, gross commission income, right? This is before I pay my federal taxes. This is before I pay my phone bill. This is before I pay my gas. Nationwide,
40
in the 40s. That's before I pay all my bills.
before.
So in order to
That's skewed. We also said that's a little skewed.
That is skewed.
Okay.
That is absolutely skewed, right? I don't disagree with that. But that end of it,
But the first person coming in, the new person coming in, is probably going to be on the lower end
Of
of
course.
that skew.
But
Naturally,
but the whole
so-
point here is that you have to have the vision, right? You got 100%, 110% in. You're going to be making little today and little the next year, but then little by little that grows and blossoms.
so where the real path to this is, just for the sake of a conversation
Yeah.
here, people are watching, right? For the sake of the conversation here, is very similar to the gentleman we just hired. This is the path we think is the best path to do this. This gentleman is working in the financial industry, actually in business and also, and he's taking this on as a part-time role for a period of time. So he has his income coming in from that end of it, and we've mapped out a goal for him in the next 24 months where our investment into him is our training and mentoring and going with it. So we're investing our time and our energy into that, and our goal is, we wrote a business plan for him yesterday, that within 24 months, he is going to get to the fiscal position he wants to be in, that he can drop out of job number one.
It's interesting. It's almost like I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs that we have on this show start the exact same way. In other words, your business is they use the word side hustle, but I don't really
kind
like
of a hobby at first.
Yeah,
Right?
I don't.
It's not even
Yeah.
a hobby. It's more like you understand that your business has at the very beginning has to coexist with your current job, because your business by itself will not support your family. But the goal is that you grow the business to the point where you reach that inflection point where you say, the time is here. The time is here for me to leave the job, and my business now becomes my job. But at that very early stage, those super early stage businesses, a lot of the people that go through the CIC classes and the workshops, they still have a job while they're doing this. So and that's why you really need that 110% kind of person.
So
because for these 24 months, this gentleman is basically going to be working almost 2 jobs at the same time.
No, he will work 2 jobs.
He will work 2 jobs at the same time.
Right, and that's the thing. That's our sit down and our conversation, right? Will you be, when I sit down and have a conversation with Xavier, I know if Xavier says, yes, I'm going to put 110% in and do this, he's going to do it. He's going to make it happen, right? This gentleman, literally is going to make it happen. And, one of the reasons why I'm excited about being on your show, I come from a building and development background, and most of my subcontractors we used to hire were Latinos. Do you know why we used to hire them? Why did we used to hire them?
They work
We're
hard.
hard workers.
They never complained. They got it done. It was unbelievable. They have work ethics that is off the charts. Not that other people don't, but historically that they were just. So if somebody out there is watching or listening to this and is willing to take a dive into the industry and is willing, that they're working someplace A, and they can come in and B. So this gentleman that we just hired, our business planning class was between 12 and 5. Well, he didn't get off of work until 5, and Yona and I spent between 5 and 8 with him last night to do a one-on-one business planning with him, so when he was done with it, he can do that. So if you're willing to put 110%, we'll put 110% into you. And that's the formula. It's not that complicated.
Which is really, it's great for many Latinos out there because, let's face it, a lot of Latinos were used to pulling those 2+ jobs.
Right.
To make this week. But the interesting thing here is you're pulling the 2+ jobs, but one of them now has so much potential. Because the potential on the real estate side is that you reach that point where that is your one job. You're growing that entrepreneurship piece of it in addition to having the 2 jobs. So for so many Latinos out there that have this wonderful work ethic that we have, and that, like you said, the ability to get done what needs to be done, you have the ability to do this, you now, instead of working 2 jobs where you're always working for someone else, one of those 2 is on the path to entrepreneurship where you're working for yourself.
So there's tons of people have great work ethic out there, so we just don't want to put it into one
it's
box.
More like, I think it's the Latino experience.
Yeah, experience.
Because it comes with the immigrant experience, you're very used to this.
But I'll take that a little bit differently. My little brother, we talk about it all the time, is a trim carpenter in Richmond, high-end stuff. He's in his mid-40s, I think, something like that, maybe late 40s. And he had a conversation with me a couple days ago. This is getting too hard on my body, right? This is getting too difficult for me right now. This thing. How do I get into your business, right? How can I take my work ethic that I have over here and move into this business because my body isn't at the age of 40, or if you're a framer or a plumber or something like that. It's just
hit the physical limitations.
You hit this physical,
the intellectual limitations.
Correct. And the beautiful thing about the conversation I had with him is since he's been in the trades and business and the construction, you kind of know this stuff already, right? And
you can bring a different perspective too.
You can bring a different perspective into it.
Well, plus, think about a lot of those Latinos that worked as subcontractors, contractors.
That's the reason
they go into a house, they can tell you this was made well. Our uncle is not Latino, but he's a contractor. You put him in a house, and Uncle Mark is telling you, that was I know that was actually well designed. I know this was done well. So he has knowledge about the construction of a house by looking at it.
We got to be a little careful with that, right? Because our licensing kind of prevents us from doing that. I'm a unique.
Interesting, really.
Yeah.
Sure, because you have the guy that does the inspection, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. So you want to be the source of the source. I want to do that. For me, it's extremely difficult because I've been a Class A contractor since '87, right? So I'll walk to a house and go, yeah. But I preface it that this is from that perspective, but we need to bring in somebody else to go ahead and look at it. So it's a third party, independent third party that looks at it.
Yeah. But you'll have that knowledge internally to be able to determine.
You can help guide the conversation a little bit.
What I was going to say also, the beauty about your particular job, right, is that if you're working a job 9 to 5, I can still work as a real estate agent, right? Because
Absolutely.
I would assume that and maybe I'm wrong, but the majority of work you do is probably on the weekends. Is that right?
It used to be like that. It's not like that. But we're like you guys, right? We're used to working 7 days a week. That's what we do.
Anytime.
That's what we do.
Right.
It's that my my phone started ringing at 6:30 this morning. It probably won't get shut off until 8 when I should. Okay, I don't shut it off. It's when my head goes and I fall asleep. Because my bedtime's about 8:15. But you know, it's a 7-day. So you're 100% right. So when we say 100, you could potentially put 210% together and make that 220.
Right.
Did I get that right? Yeah,
Yeah.
220 on that end of it. So yeah, and you know, if there's somebody out there, that path, I can get you today there to do it. The other path is just trying to figure that out. I'm not quite figured out the legalities of how that actually works.
But at least what I love is in terms of you're not going into this and saying, okay, yeah, I want to become a real estate agent. I'm on my own. Let me buy some books and finish that. You literally have people who are extremely invested.
Yona teaches the principles.
I know you and Yona are willing to put in the time, no matter what hour that is.
Sure.
To say we want you to succeed, and you can't, like, let's face it, no textbook on real estate is going to match the experience that you and Yona will provide to someone in that 3 hours from 5 o'clock last night to 8 o'clock last night. You could read a book for 30 hours. You wouldn't get that kind of insight and information. And that's just the drive, the encouragement to say, yes, you can do this.
I think that's why this gentleman signed with us. I've found it particularly with the younger millennials. They love all this technology on this phone and what all this stuff can do. I think, from my experience, what they really crave is somebody to pay attention to them, somebody to actually listen to them, and somebody who actually have a conversation with them and say, okay, I can do this. I've been here. I can help you get through this. This is great to pick hey, narrow your houses down from 10 to 2. Right,
but it doesn't replicate
it doesn't replicate
humanity. I think more and more. I think we're learning that. I think the first generation when these came out was like, "Isn't this incredible?" And I think the more they last, the more this is an incredible tool, but it cannot replace.
But it's no different than your business, right?
Oh, exactly.
I mean, I could get on a whatever the heck it is and pick stocks, right?
Sure.
But I don't have the experience of decades.
Sure.
No.
And the personal.
I don't gamble, bro.
No gambling.
I do not gamble. Actually, I do some bets on a regular basis, which I tend to lose.
But that's not gambling. That's just betting.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. As long as it's less than 1% of your total portfolio, as we always say. You can gamble with 1%, but not the rest of it.
You better tell Mrs. Smith that then.
I will certainly tell her that. Don't let him bet more than 1% of his portfolio.
No, I'm referencing, I bet Neil Williamson something, and I have to bring a bottle of bourbon into him tomorrow because I lost.
Oh, that's a social connection bet.
Yeah.
As long as you get the drink from it, that's a good bet.
I'm not a bourbon guy.
Oh, okay.
I love rum.
Rum? Do you really?
I'm a rum guy. Love rum. Rum and gin. Rum and
Honorary
gin.
Latino already.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Rum and gin.
Somewhere down the line, there must have been some Latino blood there.
There you go.
I'll take it. That's right. Tie in the.
There you go.
Vita.
Gentlemen, I was trying to set you up.
Vitae rum. Perfectly set up.
I was trying to set you up, guys.
Vitae Spirits rum. There you go.
It's actually really, really good.
It is.
It was funny you should say that. One of my favorite little Friday afternoon things to do is, I'm a martini guy, is sneak by there and sit at the bar and have a martini. They make a killer martini there.
They made very good.
With rum?
Cocktails.
No, gin.
Oh, okay. So I thought you said a rum guy.
Yeah, gin is also
great.
His gin is also great because we've had that.
No, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm
Love his gin.
just trying to figure out
Over
where
there.
the rum comes in. What is it that you like
You know,
with the rum? Put him in the spot.
No. We go down to St. Martin, right? So it's a French West Indies island, and I have a dear friend of mine that has he makes distillery. He makes rum down there, and he just turned me on. It's just freaking awesome. If it's made right, really good, it's just unbelievable. There you go.
Yeah, send them to Cuba or something, right?
Okay, I might.
They don't make rum anymore, but that's besides.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Remember? Oh, you don't.
Well, yeah.
If you can get up to like the duty frees in Canada,
Yeah, that's true.
You find the rum that's still made in Cuba.
Yeah.
So Yona and I's bucket list trip is Cuba.
Wow.
Whenever we can get there, that's our bucket list trip.
Okay.
There's
I'll
nothing
remember
like
that.
it. It's a special place. It's a special place. I'm hoping that's on my bucket list too, to be sure.
Really? Cool.
Yeah.
We'll
to
go together.
There we go. We can all. We told him we can't bring just in case he's on a list somewhere.
Well,
and then they don't let any of us
I've got to be
leave.
on that list, right?
I'm not so sure I'm not on the list either, by the way.
That's a different list, yeah.
That's different. It's that he wasn't
may be the
born
same
here.
list.
He wasn't born here, but no, he's not leaving. That's the challenge. Oh man, Keith, we've blown right past our.
Oh, cool.
No,
our
this
hours.
has been
Isn't that awesome? This has been so much fun.
This has been great,
This has
yeah.
been so-
And
Thank you.
Gotta
And
ask
what
you
I
the
wanted
same
to say
thing- oh,
before,
go.
though, is, I think, not to, blow smoke here, but the difference between, yes, what you two bring to the table, you and Yona bring to the table, versus other real estate people, and I don't know them all, so it's hard to say, but I know
From your
both of you,
experience.
yeah. How you approach your business, how comfortable you are, you're affable, right, and you're knowledgeable, and, you're good people. But the fact of what you just did with this gentleman proves it all, right? In other words, you're willing to help others, even in your business, and I think that says a lot.
But we're in the people business, and if we
Of
can't
course.
help people or help grow with people, what?
Yeah, but not everybody's the same. So a lot of people are in the people business. The only people they care about is the people themselves.
Yeah,
them,
well,
but so that's good.
You don't recover from losing everything you had, which is what Yona and I done in the great time of unpleasantness, without we just you've got if you're only caring about the bottom line and not the people, right? When something like that happens and the people help lift you up, and that's what we were able to do.
Yeah.
So the people that we trusted or trusted us, and they helped lift. That's how we recovered from it. Simple.
It's the end of It's a Wonderful Life.
There you go.
Doesn't matter if you're completely in the hole. You might go to prison. You have too much money. No man is a failure who has friends.
That's exactly right.
It's
And
that-
It's a great entry into December, isn't it?
It is. I mean, this is what we should be thinking about all year. But
That's true.
fortunately, I think Thanksgiving and Christmas sort of
Yeah.
help to remind us of it, even if we forget it in the first 10 or so months.
So the reason this is so easy for all of us, and I love Charlottesville and Judah and Jerry and everybody, because we start off with a core of friendship. We're friends. We trust each other. So it just works.
Absolutely.
It's true. Yeah.
Yes, realty partners. What's the best way people? What I love is that when people get in touch with you and Yona, they literally get in touch with you and Yona. I mean, we sent someone.
Sure.
Had a
That's
great
right.
experience
Yeah.
with
Thank
you,
you for doing that.
And it's like I went to go get the contact information. I'm like, this is literally you call Keith, you call Yona, and you do it. So what's the best way for people to get in touch?
Yeah, so you can drop in our cell phones, or the best way to get us, email. I'm a phone person. I like to talk. So the best way to do is get a hold number. So you can drop our stuff in.
Nick's going to drop them in the feeds.
Yeah.
You'll see in the feeds the numbers you can do, and literally you call, you get. It's literally you call Keith and you call
I'm
Yona.
gonna put him
which I
on my
love.
phone just to chat with him. Yeah.
Sure.
There you
At
go.
6:30 in the
Add
morning,
number.
give him a call.
Over a rum, right?
Yeah,
Or
6:30.
two?
Absolutely.
6:30 what? In the morning?
In the morning.
Okay. Thanks, guys. This has
Pleasure.
been
No,
cool.
thank you for coming.
Thank you
It's
so
been-
much.
So we
it's
got
been
you.
fun.
We got you coming on my show in a couple of weeks, right?
Yep.
Yeah, cool.
Beginning of December.
Cool. Looking forward to it.
on your show.
We'll bring the rum.
There we go. That's what we'll do. We'll bring.
Well,
we'll
my
bring the
problem
rum.
is I'm out of my stock, so I got to go down and pick it up from my buddy.
There you go.
Yona said no. Don't you got something else to do? Right? He's just always in that thing.
He's like your little bodyguard. He's been hired for you.
We spend way too much time.
Little guardian angel
Little
there.
guardian angel, like,
Yes,
no,
no,
no.
yes, no.
He knows me better than most of my family members knows me. So
Well, you guys been doing a show for a long time.
It's been
2.5
right?
years.
I know.
And did
So
you know
many
each other
shows.
before that too?
No,
Oh, okay.
sure didn't. That it's interesting. Everything we've been talking about, relationships and chemistry and getting, that's literally what happened. It was that quick. It was that quickly that it clicked, and
Yeah.
and I'm still learning. He's teaching me. Maybe I teach him a little bit, but
Vice versa.
But absolutely love doing
Absolutely.
it.
Well,
No,
you
it's
both
a-
have personalities easy to click with. I mean, I click with both of you, and I don't have a good personality, so you guys have
Did
to.
you just say you don't have a good personality?
I said that, yeah.
You have an awesome mustache, though.
There we go.
Thank
I
you.
mean, it should be awesome. It's been there for.
How long
For
have
a
you
long
had
time.
yours?
Since college.
What year?
So I think it was my senior year in college is when I grew it, and
So
I
what
was
would that be,
convinced that
70?
if I shaved it, I wouldn't get A's. I'm not going to say
or the other
whether
part.
it worked.
So in the
But-
70s, so
what was
you
that?
win.
Oh, okay.
I've had this since 85.
Oh yeah, it's definitely 70s. Yeah.
You win. Good for you, man.
70s, yep.
Has any of the kids seen you without it ever?
No.
No, in my entire lifetime,
Yeah.
I have never seen. In fact, old pictures where he doesn't have it,
Who's
you
this
get
dude?
this weird cognitive dissonance that like,
Who is that?
who is
He's
this
a little
man?
kid.
That-
It's the same thing with both my kids. They've never seen me without
Yeah.
it.
But there you go, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Wouldn't
Thank
have it
you.
Any other way. But thank you. Speaking of gratitude, it's funny because this is the one week where we don't have anything that we're saying. Next week we'll have on X, because next week is
Thanksgiving. That's right, Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
And we want to make sure we wish everybody
We wanted to wish
a
everyone a
wonderful
happy Thanksgiving and just say, just how thankful we are
Yes.
to be on this
All
set.
of us.
So
to be
what
here with
does
you.
Thanksgiving in the Earpy family look like?
Well, I think Thanksgiving is.
Quieter than you would think, given that half the family is
You
Italian.
mean food-wise or people-wise?
Well, whatever.
Yeah,
So the thing is, my mom is the most amazing chef. So the turkey is incredible. The stuffing is incredible. She's always experimenting with new things, so there'll always be something that is kind of new. Like one year it was like a southern oyster stuffing.
Ooh.
One year it's like the cream pearl onions.
Yeah.
That show up there. There's always like the green beans with the little crispy fried onion on the top.
Wow.
She makes the
the Brussels sprouts. Which
Well, we're going to stop
Nick
talking
loves.
because I didn't eat breakfast and my stomach just. Like that. So we do a fried turkey,
Oh.
a baked
Turkey.
turkey, and we always do a lasagna because half to the Italian side of the
Yep.
family.
When we used to be in New York, there was
Tell
always.
them what used to be done in the Cuban household with the turkey.
Well, so my mother used to put
Rum in it.
chopped meat into the turkey. It was picadillo. Picadillo is a chopped meat. So she used to put that, and we'd have rice and red beans,
Yeah.
with our turkey.
I like it.
I mean, that was part of it. Yeah.
It's the beauty.
The turkey was just like, okay, we have to have a turkey. What do we do with it? Well, we stuff it with something good.
Stuff it, and instead of stuffing, you stuff it with picadillo.
But you bring the multiple cultures together,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
You had the U.S., the
Yeah.
American culture, which is the turkey,
Yeah.
and then
And my wife's family did the same thing. There
Well,
was
to
always
this day-
lasagna. There was brochole.
Brochole.
Yeah.
To this day, we have the meat, the chopped meat.
Oh, that's
with the
right.
Rice.
With the rice and the chopped meat.
rice, and mushrooms. Right.
Yeah.
This dish, it's purely Italian American. Like I don't think it exists in Italy, and I don't think it exists in America.
Yeah, this is
But
Brooklyn-
on our table
Brooklyn
is
Italian.
is a dish of rice, chopped meat, and mushrooms that only
my
exists because of the
birthday
melon.
dinner is Bergeau.
Really?
Brochole.
And my grandmother, God rest her soul, used to actually put a hard-boiled egg in the middle of it.
Guess what?
Guess what we had
Nick's
last night?
birthday meal
Brochole with a
last night was
hard-boiled
the
egg.
Brochole with the hard-boiled
That's
egg.
what Nick-
And do you put the pickles in it or just the hard-boiled egg?
Hard-boiled egg with other
It's got like the little breadcrumbs
with other stuff.
and-
Yeah.
But a whole hard-boiled egg
Yes.
Yep.
in the middle. Yeah,
Exactly.
There's a whole egg in the middle.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go get lunch.
There
We're
you
done.
have it. Exactly. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you,
for
Keith.
joining
Thank you
us,
so
Keith.
much.
Thank you as our audience for joining us. Like we said, we want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. We will be enjoying Thanksgiving next Thursday, and then the following Thursday we'll have on Hope McCutcheon. So she's with Capital Services LLC, recruitment and talent acquisition, other like female entrepreneur.
Oh, wow.
Here in
Okay.
Charlottesville, doing talent acquisition and recruitment here. So that'll be fun. But just want to thank you all so much for watching. Just want to thank our sponsors: Emergent Financial Services, Vitae Spirits, GBS Financial Services, Seaville Picnic, Tristel Noel State Farm Agency, and of course Forward Adelante, Premier Latino Networking Group here. Just want to thank Jerry Judah behind the camera, always making us look good here on the I Love Seaville's set. And just want to thank you, the audience, for watching. Feel free to send us any questions, comments. Send people to us that you would love for us to feature on the show. That's what we're here for on Today Mañana.
Absolutely.
So just thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for Keith for coming on with us today. And until next 2 weeks from now, we will see you. Hasta mañana.